Hey, what's up? Josh Fosgreen here with Bass Buzz. There's a ton of stuff I wish I knew when I was a beginner learning bass that would have sped up my progress and saved me a ton of frustration. So here are 20 beginner bass tips I wish I knew when I was starting out. Tip 1. Online tabs often suck because many of them seem to be written by drunk 14-year-olds.
Hello.
If you aren't able to transcribe songs by ear accurately, and most beginners aren't, how are you supposed to know if a tab is legit or Take this top-rated tab for Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa, which is supposed to sound like this.
80, crazy, thinking about the way I was, did the heartbreak.
Let's compare this tab to my transcription, which I checked against the isolated studio bass track. These notes are wrong. These notes are wrong, and these notes are wrong. So get a hold of a real published book or even an ebook from a site like bassbooks.com. Both will be way more legit than free online tabs. Tip 2, learn to listen to bass. That's the bass, right? Imagine you wanted to be the point guard on a basketball team, but you'd never watched anybody play basketball before, ever. You just read a book about it. It would be really hard to start out because you'd have nothing to go on except for some theory.
What the hell are you doing, Jackie?
If you start listening to actual bass playing, you'll develop a practical understanding of how bass lines work in a song. So here are 3 things to help you with that. 1, just start focusing your ear on the bass, which takes practice to get better at. 2, make sure you're listening through good headphones or good speakers and not through your phone. You need to hear and feel the bass. And 3, listen to music with recognizable bass lines. To help you out with this, I made you a Spotify playlist of 50 songs with easy to hear bass lines. You can check that out with the link in the description. Tip 3, practice 5 minutes a day. Because practicing 5 minutes a day is better than practicing for an hour once a week, even though it's less time, because your brain benefits from the more frequent training sessions. And if you can get yourself to pick up the bass for just 5 minutes, you'll often actually play for more than 5 minutes because you kind of get into it. It's a silly little psychological trick, but it actually works. If you want to build a strong practice habit, it helps to establish a daily routine and use cues like after I brush my teeth in the morning, I practice for 5 minutes, or after I eat dinner, I'll practice for 5 minutes. Using cues helps build much stronger habits, which you can learn more about from James Clear's excellent book, Atomic Habits. Number 4, slow it down, because otherwise you're just practicing and learning your mistakes. As Daniel Coyle writes in The Talent Code, going slow allows you to attend more closely to errors, creating a higher degree of precision. In the words of Kendrick Freeman, who's a great drummer and teacher here in Northern California, if you practice slow, you will learn fast. If you practice fast, you will learn slow. If you're worried that practicing slow means that you'll never speed back up, just use a metronome, find your starting tempo, and then keep track of it over time, and you can watch your speed increasing. Tip 5, practice bite size, because trying to learn too much at once is overwhelming and counterproductive. We can only hold about 7 little bits of stuff in our short-term memory at once, and as a beginner you have a limited ability to chunk musical information to expand that limit. So trying to learn a whole song or even 4 bars of something really difficult might be too much for one session. So with difficult music, set yourself up for success. Take it 1 bar or even just a few notes at a time. There is no shame in starting slow and small. Beginner bass tip number 6, learn the musical alphabet and the notes on the neck, even if you don't want to learn theory, because musicians don't speak in fret numbers and we need a common language to communicate.
Hey Josh, play me a B hamstring.
You can check out my fretboard money notes video as a super easy way to get started with that. Just know that learning the neck actually gets easier with time, and eventually you can have the whole thing memorized, which makes learning anything way easier. Tip 7, notice your progress. I've seen tons of students get really discouraged because they don't notice their progress. They might be feeling stuck even though they've made clear progress in measurable ways because they're only focusing forwards on what they can't do and don't notice what they can do. Keeping a practice journal can help you see your progress, like beats per minute numbers increasing over time. And what's this back here? It says like, subscribe, ring the bell. I don't know what that means. Number 8, record yourself. You know when you hear a recording of yourself talking and you think,
Whoa, is that what I really sound like?
it's a similar thing when playing bass. It's hard to be objective when you're in it. There are tons of ways to record yourself, from using a digital audio interface into recording software like Logic or Pro Tools or GarageBand, or using a looper pedal like this little Ditto. But you can also just use your phone voice memo app, sit it on top of your amp, and record yourself that way. It'll probably be good enough for these purposes. All right, time for a flurry of gear tips. Tip 9, gear barely matters. Don't think that you need to spend a ton of money to get started on bass or even to be a pro. If you have a working bass and a decent amp, it's what you do with it that really matters. I'm sitting here playing this like cheapo Squier bass. Does it sound okay to you? Here's me playing this super cheap Music Man model. Does that sound okay? Here's an even cheaper Court Action from our beginner bass reviews a few years ago in a rather fetching sparkly pink. Does that sound okay? If you still need a bass or an amp, you can check out our last round of beginner bass and amp reviews. They're a few years old now, but it's still good gear. Tip 10, get a setup, which means having the truss rod inside the neck and the bridge saddles adjusted so that the strings are the right height from the neck. This can totally change how it feels to play your bass and make your life easier. I've heard this from many students. Recently had a setup done and made a massive difference. Had a setup done on my bass. It made all the difference. Got a setup done. Wow, what a difference. You can learn how to do a basic setup yourself, but it's best to have a pro do it at least the first time because there can be complex issues that are really hard to diagnose as an amateur. Tip 11, always wear a strap, whether you're standing or sitting, for stability and for better technique. Tip 12, don't set your bass down like this with the back of the neck up against a chair or a table, because someday it will fall down, you won't be there to catch it, and you will be very, very sad. At the very least, rest the string side down rather than the neck because it's a flatter surface. But what you should really do is just get a real guitar/bass stand. Don't mess around with your beautiful instrument. Tip 13, unplug cables from the amp side, not from the instrument side. Otherwise, you will hear a huge loud pop that can damage speakers and your ears. I would demonstrate for you, but I love my amp too much. So just think which side of this cable is closer to the amp and unplug from there if you really need to unplug from a live amp. Tip 14, put your cable through your strap. It takes stress off the cable and it protects you from getting unplugged when your guitar player is drunkenly careening around the stage playing their extended solo. There's nothing worse than being on stage and all of a sudden the bass disappears because you got unplugged. So just bring your cable behind the bass, go through the strap on the back side, and then plug in with plenty of slack still on the cable. The following is a public service announcement. Tip 15, no drinks on amps, because amps aren't waterproof and things happen. Kids, don't put drinks on your amps. Tip 16, learn full songs, because it teaches you different skills than just learning riffs. It builds your focus and endurance, and learning the form and structure of a full song helps you to write better songs and bass lines yourself. And if you don't practice full songs on your own, you might find yourself surprised to be getting massive hand cramps when you finally play with others. It's best to work with a teacher to find songs that are at the right level for you, but if you're flying solo, I recommend you just start with songs that you think are too easy to build a base of successes before you challenge yourself. Tip 17, sleep is part of practice, because everyone hits roadblocks, and often all you need is some rest and sleep to help your brain make the connections. According to people in white lab coats, complex motor tasks require several training sessions interspersed with periods of rest and sleep. Here are some testimonials on the power of sleep from my students. Something clicked after a night of sleep and I'm doing a little bit better. Tried this again today. Something good must have happened while I was sleeping last night. I'm surprised how much better I can play something when reviewing it the next day. Something about sleeping on it. So when you've hit a wall and you've already practiced that day, avoid the burnout by giving yourself a break and tackling it the next day, and just see if sleep sprinkles any magic fairy dust on your issue. Tip 18, get guidance from a teacher or a curriculum so that roadblocks in your learning don't stick for too long. A good teacher can speed up your progress and also cheerlead you through practice obstacles. Rah, rah, rah. Finding a good one-to-one teacher is hard, so try a few people and don't feel stuck if you're not enjoying someone's lessons. If something's not going well, it's the teacher's fault, not yours. And you can also use something like my Beginner to Badass course for cheerleading and guidance, which you can check out at bassbuzz.com. Tip 19, breathe. Most people stop breathing when they practice because you're focusing on your hands, you get all clenched up, and you stop breathing, but you need the oxygen going to your brain and your muscles to keep playing bass and just to stay alive. So include breathing as a component of your practice, just like fingering or rhythm, and make a note to remind yourself regularly to breathe or ask yourself, am I breathing? Tip 20, stop believing in talent. Actually, Steve, I'm saying this is a situation where you should stop believing. As Jeff Colvin writes at the end of Talent is Overrated, great performance is not reserved for a preordained few. It is available to you and everyone. The best way to clear some talent mythology out of your head is to educate yourself. This is a great book to start with. I learned a lot from it myself. The more you play and practice, the more you see there's no fixed limit on how badass you can be. It's just how far do you want to take it? Do you want to stay at a fixed level of skill, or do you stay in Wonderland and find out how deep the rabbit hole goes?
Do not try to play the bass. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no bass.
There is no bass?